Alright, so final results. Finished our lamination last night. And overall, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it turned out real nice. Oh, you know what? That's in it right there. Has a little cup in it. No big deal. It's not like it's gonna matter. It's just a stringer.
Yeah, that cup wasn't there last night. So that must have appeared at some point.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure why. If it's like the
Maybe it's because
the
we
resin
laid up.
shrinking.
We laid up on the bottom and it cured first, so it cupped it that way, and then we stuck our top pieces on.
I have a feeling that's what's going on.
Yeah.
I guess if a guy was like doing this all the time, it'd be easy enough to compensate for that just by keeping your ends up a little bit. It's not that much. I strung a string line across here, and we're about a half inch lower here. Like I say, it's really not a very critical thing. It's just it's a stringer. Never gonna see it. It's gonna get covered up. It's gonna get boxed in.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can pull it out. If we can, we will. If we can't, then it will stay the way it is. This thing is rigid now.
Yeah, it had a decent amount of flex before the pieces.
Yeah, before when you lifted up one end, it probably flexed, I don't know, an inch in the center.
Yeah,
I'd say.
say about that.
But now there is no flex.
No flex, and it's much heavier. Twice the weight.
Tiny little bit of flex. Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy, it's rigid, so we're gonna get all these ends trimmed up first this morning, and then we can slip this down in the fish hold, and we'll take a look and see how it looks. Make any minor tweaks that we need to make. Hopefully it fits in there pretty good, and we don't have to wrestle around with it too much. I know I do have to trim this one edge still. The sheet underneath already has the angle for the bulkhead up there. This top one doesn't, so it's about a half inch long right here, 3/4 inch long, so this needs to be trimmed to butt up against the bulkhead and the fish hold correctly. And then these angles here are a little bit weird. They're basically, I just cut the angles long so I'd have the right amount of material on the other pieces that we'll be using for the other side. Both sides should be where they need to be, and so we can just go down here with like a sawzall and just ride on the fiberglass edges of both sides of the panel and trim the inside. The foam is going to be short in there in places, just the way it turned out, but this will all get bedded in a heavy layer of structural putty, and we bed it onto the hull, and then we'll go along and we'll clean up the squeeze out, and we'll put a big heavy fillet in there, and then we'll tab into that, and by golly, it should be good when we're done.
Yeah, excited to get it in there.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, once this piece goes in, then we can work on what'll be like the aft fish hold, the stringer right there. This one ends right at the bulkhead, and so we'll work on our next little piece, and we'll start getting it fabbed up. I think we have enough material and some panels over there already. I think it's good.
I think it's good. It looks good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then on these seams right here, before we put these in place, we'll come in here and grind these back a little bit. The general rule of thumb when you're doing splices or repairs on fiberglass is 12-to-1. So if you had a 1-inch thick hull on your hole, you would grind that back 12 inches for every inch of thickness
of fiberglass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in this case, it's about a 1/4 inch. We'll grind it back about 3 inches on each side.
Yep.
Is that correct? And then we'll just lay the same amount of material back in again, and that's going to bridge that gap. It's already really strong, but that'll make sure that, number one, it gets the strength in there that it needs, and it'll just ferret out a little bit too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll, I guess, get ready to cut this thing, huh?
Yeah, I guess that's first on the agenda is to trim that up and get all the dags off of it and handle it safely without getting jabbed and poked.
Yeah.
These corners are pretty brutal now, pretty sharp too.
Swing the edge a bit. I don't know if that's just the, not gonna hurt nothing really.
Yeah, because it's just going to be glassed over.
Yeah.
And you got to take it off anyway because you got to round it.
That looks good, huh?
Yeah, nice and clean.
Mm-hmm.
Nice and clean.
Yeah. Good bond
Yeah.
on that foam. Like I can't. That's good.
So when you need to clamp something inside of a large panel or something, and you don't have enough throat on your clamp, so you don't have some long, what are those, like the vice grip type cowboy clamps or anything. This works really good like this. You just take a little shim and get it on the outside of your pad right here. So as you tighten up, it puts the flex in here, and it'll put the same amount of pressure down here as more or less it will here. If you don't have the shim here, it tends to just put all the pressure here, and while it will put some clamping force here, it won't be very strong, it won't be very good. Whatever you're clamping down can slip easily. But by doing it like this, you know, you direct that force into the beam that you're carrying across, and you get more or less equal pressure on both sides, and you get a lot more clamping force there. You can reach out pretty far on something doing it this way. It works really well. If you didn't have this block here, by the time you start to squeeze down, you're really just almost clamping right here. You do get some pressure down here, but most of your force is going to be directed directly down under this pad, and you won't really get much here because you're tight up against that. So just a cool little trick. Might find helpful in some situations like this one. The reason we did that is because even though this is 1/4-inch aluminum, it still has some flex in it. And when you're cutting against it, you know, you start to push in and you can get off a little bit.
closer, right, huh?
So, huh?
Yeah. Might need to go over it with the grinder.
Hmm?
Might need to go over it with the grinder.
Yeah.
So we do have a multi-tool. We just don't have any blades for it right now. Went and checked our local hardware store and they didn't have any available, so.
Yeah, you gotta get the good ones that are made for cutting ceramic,
Yep.
or you'll just destroy the blade like within seconds.
Yeah, we watch Life on the Holes on YouTube, and he says that a diamond edge ceramic blade works really good. He's used one through the duration of his whole project, so
Yeah,
hasn't even gone through one.
yeah.
So we're gonna look at getting one or two of those and get them on our way here.
Here you go. I got this end. Okay, over there.
Which sides here? Ready?
Yep.
Alright. Look at that. Looks pretty darn good.
That looks pretty tight, doesn't it?
Well, not a bad fit. You know, this doesn't need to be perfect by any means. Like I say, we'll put a thick layer of structural putty all along the bottom edge down there, and we'll plop it into place. We'll have a couple of blocks over here to register it so it can't slip. Same thing, a couple of pieces coming out here to keep the bottom from kicking. And we'll get it puttied up good, and then we'll drop it into place, and then just push it down and clean up the squeeze out. This side right here, we probably don't even need to really fillet it.
No, I don't think so.
A pretty nice angle. The inside, we'll put a fillet of putty. That's a curve, you know, to radius the 90, which is actually a lot more than a 90.
Like
I don't know. It's like, yeah,
technically it'd
be like a 65 or something, 65-degree angle maybe, somewhere in there, 60, 70-degree angle. I don't know. Haven't measured it, but yeah, at any rate, we'll fillet it, put a nice curve in there, and that's going to allow the glass that you tab in to turn nicely without a sharp kink in it, a hard crease. Those really hard creases, sharp corners like that are almost impossible to get laid down flat. Each layer just wants to float on the next one, and it can be really, really frustrating. So that's why you see the corners always have a nice fillet in them. They're rounded, makes your life easier. So we'll do that once this is set in place, and we'll come back in and we'll start tabbing it. And it looks good.
That's great.
We're just going to get this blocked up right now, kind of get our jig set up again in here to hold this in place, and we'll assess the gap along the bottom. It looks pretty good here. It's a little bit wider on the other side, it looks like, but I don't think that there's really a lot that we can do with it. It's pretty hard to start fiddling with it at this point. Place up. Let's get heavier.
You've got the heavy side, Dad.
You positioned yourself awkwardly.
I did. I was giving you clearance, but
Why does it feel so much heavier now?
because it is heavy. You're gonna plug
So yeah, I just gotta just clean these edges up a little bit. Like right here, you can see that the center web is proud of the others. So just need to hit that with a grinder in a few spots. I could just go down the bottom of it with a ruler and check it and touch it up, and that'll hopefully bring the rest of it down. Cool. I also made some measurements from the old stringer across, so I know exactly where this needs to go. So I'm just going to measure the thickness of this. 2.5 inches now. Huh. Interesting. So we've got a 1/2 inch of glass total in this right now. So we're at 21.5. So I'm going to go 2.5. It's going to make me 24 inches, Matt. Quite impossible to see. Looks pretty good, I guess.
Internet works really good for that too, huh? Gosh, have to put some handles on this thing. The 16th off, Matt.
Oh no. In
Mm-hmm.
this way.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, that fit is good. Like overall.
Yeah.
Couple of little whoop-de-doos here and there. So really the last thing to do, I think, is we know that we're pretty straight. We can stretch our line from our shaft again, and then we'll measure off the shaft to the top of the edge, and it should be fairly consistent. Because we're going off the center line of the shaft, so we don't have to worry about, you know, the shaft orientation or anything. It's going to be the same on both ends. And then we measure, and that's going to make sure that we're fairly consistent. And then we can also put a straight edge across and measure down. Just kind of a block to register it against here and clamp it. Wet that out. Got a line down here. wet that out. We'll wet out both the bottom and this forward edge where it goes to the bulkhead. And then we're just going to put a big layer of putty on there and drop it in. Till we get this stuff wetted in and let it soak in a bit.
Aerial view.
So we did lay down a couple layers of mat on this already, just till we had a real good bond. This roving is pretty lumpy, so this matting, you apply it, you work it in there real good, and it gets in there and it adheres to all those, and it'll get a real good bond. Now just a quick resin coat for that putty to stick to. That putty is not super thick or dry, but it does seem to help a little bit of resin, and especially on these raw areas of foam, you can see I've already hit it once, but it's soaked in quite a bit. So this is closed cell foam, but still all those little open cells, you want to get some resin in there, let it penetrate in there, because that putty won't really absorb into it like the resin will. And this is just going to help seal that off and make sure that that putty gets a really good bond too.
I feel like it's hot to
Yeah. Could probably use a little more down on this far end there.
How much more?
No, I mean just, yeah.
Scrape it up?
No.
Oh, a little on this far end?
Yeah, just build it up down there.
Should mix the powder, Dad.
Oh, yeah, thank you later. There's your clamp right there, for your end.
Right there.
Let me pick up my end and I'll move it there. Here, you keep it from flopping that way, okay?
Okay.
Just lift up on my clamp here. Ugh. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Which way are we going like this again, huh?
Oh, sure. Okay. Ready?
Yep. Okay, let me get my end kind of up again.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead down. And give her a little shove forward.
Are we good?
I think we're going to be as good as can be. Just kind of wiggle it a little. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah. pull your sleeves out. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, just like that. And that's good. Good? Yeah. Quick.
Yeah! Alright.
Quick clean up before it chills, huh? No, it might be alright.
It doesn't need to go completely to the end, so if we just start it on that clamp there and then let it run this way.
Yeah.
It looks good. Looks real good.
Fill that gap later or now?
You can dab it in now. Maybe focus on the backside though, forcing it in.
Yeah.
You should just be able to, yeah, like crush it in.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly like that. Beautiful. Oh, you can't see that, so it's kind of dark in there. A little bit of light in that. Oh, he's right.
It's been amber for like 10 minutes now.
Well, here's a big gob right here. This is the stuff, first stuff that went down, so you might want to actually come work on this big pile right here.
Okay.
That would be no fun to chisel out of there. Yeah, that was the first down right there, so. Yeah. Flip your clamp over. That enough? Come in on the end of it. There you go. That'll be fine. That looks like it's bowed more down low, so. For what it's worth,
Yeah.
I'll go get a big clamp to throw on the top there.
Okay.
I don't even have to put it in there. So that one little spot right there, isn't it? Gelling?
Really, I think. Alright, guys, we got our stringer in. Finally.
Well, we got 2/3 of it in.
The main part.
I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, for sure. Now we know what to expect.
This other one we should be able just to work in place. We'll just stretch our aluminum back, put a block on the wall to clamp it to, and just start fitting those pieces in.
Yeah.
Get them fit up, quick laminate, slam it in.
Awesome.
And meanwhile, we'll start tabbing this one out, I think, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad's back here, working out the template for our next set of stringers. Or actually, the back of the first part that we did yesterday.
Yeah, the shaft alley stringer that will be in the back fish hold. So, quite a bit shorter in the front one. It's about 63 inches overall, and certainly not as deep either. It's 18 inches on the top end, and it tapers down to about 8 inches as we go aft. So, quite a bit smaller. So, I think that I can probably get most of it out of this piece right here. Both layers, so that'll be pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to get it laid out to where I'm not wasting a bunch of material here.
Trying to most efficiently use your panels and reduce waste.
Yeah, you don't
But-
want to be throwing away too much of this stuff. It adds up pretty quick.
Time-consuming fiddly part.
Yeah. So I just got a page full of numbers. These are just measurements that we took, going like forward, aft, every 2 inches. We took a measurement down from a piece of aluminum angle that we had stretched across there that represented the top of these stringers. Also a little bit time consuming, but it worked out really well. The forward stringer, we used the same method, and we really didn't have to like tweak it at all.
Yeah, it
Just,
fit really good, huh?
It fit really good. I mean, like, within reason. There's probably a 1/4 inch gap in places, but we didn't really fiddle with it much. We just ground down a couple of little high spots and dropped it in there and called it good. It was just a few spots that it had a little more gap. Most of it fit real tight, and it's just kind of one of those things that you can get it closer, but you can also spend a lot of time messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's glued in. I think we used about a quart. What did we use? About a 1.5 quart of putty for that.
Yeah, one of those cups is a quart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about that, maybe close to 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was to bed the whole thing in putty, and so that was 2.5 inches wide, about 11 feet long, 10 feet long, and then 2 feet up on one end. All right, well, let's have all my marks here. Just a little dot. Now we'll just kind of spring a bat and something flexible. Probably just this ruler here. I'll just spring it along there, and Matt can come draw a line for me. And that's going to be our edge that we need to cut. Come help me, Matt, please.
Oh, need help?
Yeah. Go ahead and get that part right there. Good. Doesn't have to be perfect anyways, so normally a guy would just want to put a bunch of screws or nails into all your holes and then form your batten off that, but we don't want to put a bunch of holes in this, so yeah, go ahead, right there, all the way to the end. Good enough. So that is the curve right there. Weird. And then I still need to add a few more inches here. And I can just take my planer and put it at a slight angle, and I'll just work my way down, just keeping an eye on the thickness down here, and just get it down to like the first layer of chop strand mat. Taper it over into here somewhere. Doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah, down here I laminated the corners. Show you guys. Not actually laminated the corners, but tabbed the corners. Didn't film it, but it went pretty good. Pretty smooth. It looks great. Got one in on the outside, and today we'll just be doing this whole the whole stringer going forward. And I think that should take less time than the corners do, because they're a little bit fiddly. Also, here's the seam. Here's the first seam that we filled there. I did that one last night. So I got some air bubbles in it. That's annoying, but it's alright.
go. Nice. Before and after. Cool.
Laminate done.
Yeah, it turned out good.
Got our other 2 layers glued together here. This morning, just kind of did a rough trim to drop it in here, see how it looks. I know it's a little bit off, so I might have to do a little bit of tweaking, a little bit trimming, but before I got too carried away, I thought we should probably test fit it. And we'll get the rest of it cleaned up and get this thing ready to glue in this evening. So, see if it'll fit. It might be a little bit long. I knocked a tad bit off each end, but still might be a touch long, so I'll take a look here anyways. Oh. Well, it goes in the spot, so that's good.
Yeah.
I think I took 2, is it tight over there, more or less? So that's supposed to be about 21 inches. That's, looks like it's about a 1/4 inch high right now, which is fine. I'll probably just do the same thing as we did on this forward portion of the stringer, and that was to clamp our piece of angle against this and trim it. You can see what this looks like, this edge compared to the one in front of it. And that actually turned out really nice to trim it that way. It's nice and clean, and it's a nice flat surface, so.
Make glassing easy.
Yeah.
Well, we're throwing our covers over top of it, but
Yep.
yeah.
But still, they'll go down nice and even and won't be lumpy.
Yeah.
I'll just trim this edge and we'll go from there. Maybe a little bit to clean up on the bottom here and mix up some glue and get this thing locked down tonight.
Alright, so just giving it a quick acetone wipe, get rid of all the dust and foreign matter.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Be sure to like, comment, and see you guys next time.
See you again soon. Bye.